two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs here, and we wanted to meet our audience with the two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs here. So if we could take introductions from each one of you and meet with our audience, if possible.
Yeah, hi, I'm Konstantin, and first of all, I'm thankful to be here at Sabancı, at the best university in Turkey. As Yusuf has mentioned to everyone in San Francisco, so everybody knows now in California that this is the best university in Turkey. But I'm originally from Austria, and that's where I grew up. Went to uni in the UK and China, and kind of like started my entrepreneurial journey quite early during high school. Started my first business when I was 15 years old, and went like on the Austrian Shark Tank, and kind of like got hooked on the thrill of just doing something, of just starting something. And yeah, and since then have been in this ecosystem. I've worked for various startups in the US and Asia and Europe. And yeah, and now finally again back into starting something. Now with Yusuf.
I'm Yusufhan. I'm a Sabancı graduate. I did my bachelor's here in computer science and I had a double degree in electronics. And then I moved to London to do my master's in UCL on computer graphics and vision. I have much less entrepreneurial experience than Konsti, but then we met each other during the Entrepreneur First program in London, where they scout young entrepreneurial vibe students and then recruit them into their program, and then basically we met each other. It was basically you don't know this person when you first start the program, and then you basically get married overnight and then try to come up with a business idea.
For me, it was love at first sight.
Yeah. So maybe we can dive more into detail and what caught us our attention. But overall, I think this is my home turf because, as Konstantin mentioned, I'm doing super good promotion about Sabancı in international waters. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. And if we could start with your early entrepreneurial adventures, if possible, so that our audience can lead us somewhere with you.
So what I've started previously, what I've worked on? Yeah, so basically, this was some basic stuff during high school. I had this idea that products could be delivered locally and kind of just started it, just like launched a website and had like a phone number where people could order products and I would just deliver them from, I just by myself with a friend, we would just go to the store, get it and then deliver it. But it completely took off because somebody posted it online in 2015 on Facebook, it was still a big thing then. And newspapers picked it up and everyone thought this is a huge company. So you got thousands of orders, and then the chancellor wanted to meet us. I held a keynote with the chancellor of Austria, and basically there was not much behind it. But this was kind of like, I was like, wow, actually, you can just do things. Like, there's nobody stopping you from just starting something, just getting active, and just trying it out. And from this, like, at the end of the day, this was not a great business case. The margins were super slim, and also the investors that wanted to invest wanted us to drop out of high school, but my mom was like, yeah, this is not going to happen. So then I continued, I built like a math learning app, which also like had a lot of users. And then during COVID, I built like a COVID-19 app, which was also then used by like 150,000 people like very quickly. And I think what's interesting to say to this is that I'm not a technical person. I'm not like Yusuf, a computer genius. Like I'm just like a guy. And I just used a lot of no-code tools. And I think nowadays it's even more accessible than back then, that you can build the first version of something just with like very, very little resources, just try it out and get it into the hands of people and see if they like it or not before you spend too much time raising money or building something. You can just like try it out.
That's great. You were a high school student back then?
Yes, I was a high school student.
So when you were a high school student, you made an app which tracked COVID. And you met with the Chancellor of Austria.
Yeah, exactly.
And perhaps went big. You went big.
Yeah. So that was quite fun. But it was like, again, so it was like just me. It was like, you can, what I learned from these experiences is that you can actually, as an individual, you can actually do quite a lot. Like sometimes you might think like, oh, these people, they have like so much resources, they have spent like 5 years at McKinsey, they're so smart. But at the end of the day, what you can learn in entrepreneurship is like, nobody knows anything. right? Because if other people would know, if then they wouldn't be like entrepreneurs or students building companies, but their investors would just like do it themselves. But you kind of discover it as you go. You just have to try, you just get the ball rolling, and then you learn and iterate and build on that. So I think that was basically the key lesson.
I see. What about you, Yusufhan?
I actually this is my I think like the first proper entrepreneurial experience. Like for me, I'm quite new, so that's why like I think when we go into more the detail on like how you select your co-founder, how you select your partner, like business partner, like I think like for me like what was really interesting with Konsti is that he had like bunch of experience for his age about building businesses, building business cases, and like actually shipping stuff to actual people. And that experience I lacked, and and I think that was how we complement each other. I provide the technical experience, and he provides the commercial mind, and this makes us a good team.
You make a great couple.
Yeah, but also like what's also interesting in the beginning of a company, so at this early stage where we are at right now, you don't even need that much technical.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's actually Yusuf is kind of like a commercial guy. Like the only thing you do is like you pick up the phone, you call people, and try to understand what is painful for them, what are their problems, and would they pay money for it.
How do you find that people? How do you find that kind of people?
That's the painful process.
Yeah, basically like in London it was like okay, because in Europe like we find out like it is like it's more approachable, like people are more prone and more okay to talking to random people over the internet, and and also like I have a huge network in Turkey. Like when you like message someone on LinkedIn and say you're a Sabancı graduate or like you did this and that, they're like most likely to respond to you. But in US, for example, none of these things matter. They only care about like what value you can add to them. So we are just like right now we're just like doing massive outreach on LinkedIn, basically finding people's like phone numbers over internet, using Apollo and like all of these like apps, and like saying, oh, I'm building like a AI startup, or I'm building like something in this space. I would like to talk to you for 15 minutes. Like, how does that sound? And then some people, like most people, don't respond, but some people do, and those people are interesting.
I think that is like the most difficult part. Because at the beginning you don't have anything, especially if you're a recent graduate, you don't have any industry experience, you don't know what the real problems are. So then on LinkedIn you get like 200 outreach
per week.
Yeah. So every week we can send 200 people a connection request, plus 100 LinkedIn in-mail direct messages. So that means like both Yusuf and I, we contact 600 people per week, which is like a massive effort. And it's super boring also, like you just like search for the people that could be relevant, text them, and hope they schedule a meeting with them. And so we do like 400 to 600 people we contact, and we schedule 20 meetings, 30 meetings. So you see, like it's a very, like, I think that's something that's often not talked about in these kinds of talks, is that you really need to push for this like initial like
ideation,
like you just need to get somewhere. And if you just talk to 2 or 3 people, you don't get enough data to actually make a real business decision.
And also I would like to add on that, like, so it's like, so everyone has access to these like 200 like LinkedIn messages or like plus 100 emails, right? So you need to be able to differentiate with respect to your outreach as well. So like any random person like all over the world, they can reach out to the same 200 people and get like the similar amount of response to it, right? So what would like make you accelerate and like go faster more is that how you leverage your network. Like you need to be able to like basically, if you interned in a company, you need to like ask your supervisor, oh, within this department, can you like do a cold intro to this person for me? Or like if you have a family relative that works in a specific sector, like a space, you need to ask them and push them. Like basically these things, they are the ones that differentiate you from like all of the people around the world that are doing LinkedIn outreach, basically.
This is basically this concept that's always like in Silicon Valley or in entrepreneurship. It's always like, what is your unfair advantage? Like, where do you have like an edge or something that the average person doesn't have? Like, oh, I'm intern of a company. Oh, yes, my brother works in this company, or his girlfriend works in this company, and I can talk to like somebody there, because that already gives you like a different angle. This is also like one of the main reasons why we decided because we were in San Francisco to come to Turkey for a little bit, for a few weeks, because we realized in the US an Austrian and a Turkish guy, we don't have any competitive advantage. We can just do the LinkedIn outreach, right? We have no like established networks. We have no like anything. But like if we go back to Europe, yes, maybe I have a friend who works like somewhere in Germany, and he's more likely to get an introduction to like his boss at his company. Same with Yusuf in Turkey. So you kind of like it's a fight. Like you need to find out, okay, where can I find a shortcut? Where can I get through? And just take whatever is possible. Yeah.
I see. Can we pass through your experiences of Silicon Valley and how to pull in investors? I think our audience really wants to dig that.
Yeah.
Wants to learn that.
I think Silicon Valley is like I think from my perspective, Silicon Valley is like the best place in the world to raise money, but not necessarily for your first step to identify what you're doing. I think like what the smartest way to do it, if you guys are interested in starting a company, is like try to identify like an initial hypothesis, like some idea here in Turkey or wherever you're from, and try to get just like a direction, but always with the mindset of okay, US, because the US is like the largest single market in the world, so and the largest software. If you build something with software, largest software market in the world. So whatever you do, it will just be much bigger if you're in the US. I worked for this like very famous venture capital called Global Founders Capital, or we did that before. And the boss there, the CEO, told me like, because I was like, oh, I'm super interested in going like to Latin America and building like, I don't know, something there. And he told me like, oh yeah, you can build the Amazon of Latin America, or you build like a random API small thing in the US and you will get to the same valuation. Because just like the purchasing power is so much higher, and also the capital that is in the market.
It's also easier to sell stuff in US.
Yeah,
like
they're more likely to try out.
Because they have the culture of like working with startups, working with entrepreneurs. The thing I said about like previously, it's like easier for us to get conversations in Europe. But even though we get these conversations, it's harder to sell because like this person has to justify to his boss why he's talking to these two random people. And like, but in US, like they have a culture. They work with startups before. Every company have heard about like Silicon Valley and what's going on there. So they're like more.
There's so many success cases.
Exactly. There are so many success cases. So it's like easier to get penetrate into a company with respect to like a sales cycle.
Yeah, and then in terms of like, because your question was like I think more general towards investors. I think like what investors care about like it's just like okay, on the one side of course like what's your business case, what's your traction, like do you really understand your customers and do you really like have a business case and like especially now that software is getting like so easy to build, like they just want to see traction. Like it's very hard without traction to raise any money. And once you have traction, then they care about like, okay, what is your vision? Like they always like in Silicon Valley, like maybe in Europe, it's enough to say like, okay, I have this idea and this can work. But in the US, they always want to see like, it was like, if it's like in the beginning when you hear talk with them, I thought they were insane. They always talk about like $1 billion, $100 billion opportunity, changing the industry. So they always want to, because how these VC funds work in the US, they only invest if they think you can return their fund. And their fund sizes are usually like $1+ billion. So it needs to have the potential to have a $1 billion exit at least. Because otherwise, like even like a $100 million exit, which sounds great, or a $70 million exit, doesn't really make a difference for them. Because it's like a winner takes it all kind of business model. It's it's called like a power law distribution. Like most companies don't return anything, but then there's a few that return everything. So it's better to be like to have one Facebook, and like if they invested in one Facebook and in 100 companies that didn't return anything, it's better than to have invested in 100 companies that worked a little bit. So that's why they're always like you always need to paint a vision of like how this can be like insanely big. And then you can but then once you have like the vision and a bit of traction, getting to the investors, it works through introductions, it's not that difficult. Like it's more, I think the fundamentals are much more important than actually like networking with the investors, because that happens by itself once you're in San Francisco.
Yeah, basically like it's their job to come and like find and scout like the companies that work. So like actually the funny thing is that like they have like also the thing we do with like customer calls, like the thing we do like with like LinkedIn outreach to people working in the industry, investors do it for startup founders. So they send like a lot of like automated messages to the people who are like building something. So like
I get like a bunch of messages every day from like VCs, like, hey, really cool profile, I would love to go for a coffee or something. But it's just they just want to. They're just doing market research. They just want to know who is doing what and want to get these conversations. But you're actually not really interested in talking to them. You only want to talk to them once you're ready. Like you want to avoid talking like networking with investors. Like there's not really any value in it. It's not difficult to get to them because it's their job to get to you. It's more difficult to get away from them because they always try to talk to you, but you don't want to talk to them before you're ready because they have a CRM. They track. Oh, this guy's working on this, and then if you then present something completely else, they're like, do these people really know what they're doing? So I would like avoid talking to investors until you're ready, and then you can just like talk to them all at once.
Yeah, like I think it's also like same as like progress. They're also like measuring you with how fast you're going because like in San Francisco everything is like acceleration and like how fast you go is the most important thing. Like it's almost as important as your vision. And if you like did like a call with like a VC like 8 months ago, and then you started to raise like 8 months later, and you don't have like insane progress, you're not like making a lot of money, then they're like, okay, this team is slow. Like then this team is not like not worth our time, and like you don't get to access these like top funds that have like the strong brand basically.
Yeah. I mean like I think like it's also like an insane like pressure culture. Like everything needs to be like super fast, super good, really in a very short timeline. So it's like very intense. Like also like because in San Francisco everyone works all the time. I don't know if it's just because because the startups and the investors demand this, but also because San Francisco is kind of boring. Like there's not that much to do. You can't really do that much because everyone is working. It's not like Istanbul. It's not like such a cool city, and there's maybe one fun bar in.
Okay, maybe let's go to the next question.
Yeah, maybe I can ask it. Yeah, Victor's vision. What is the startup definition for you, and who is the entrepreneur, and why you chose being entrepreneur? Startup definition with this vision.
What the definition of a startup?
Yeah. After this experience.
Yeah, I think like in Silicon Valley, a startup is like for them it's only a company that can. Their definition is that it's a company that can get to 100 million in annual revenue, recurring revenue. That is their metric. That is what the investors say. That is their definition. And because once it's 100 million revenue with a 10x multiple, it can be a $1 billion company. So then if you have 100 million in revenue, like it needs to operate in a market that is quite large. Because if it's just a $1 billion market or a $500 million market size, it's like unlikely that you get like this share of the market. So I think like for me the startup is just like a company that can get to in an extremely short amount of time to a very large number of revenue in a pretty big market.
There's actually like a model like you need to either sell like $1 million worth of product 100 times or like what was it, $1,000 worth of product like 1 million times, like or like 100,000 times.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, basically it's like I think as you mentioned like 100 million.
So basically the frameworks that they use, like how to think about your business from day one, like what kind of business are you building? Am I building a business where I'm selling to like large enterprises and I'm charging like $10 million? So I need to find 10 customers to get 100 million? Or am I building like for end consumers and I want like a million users that pay me $100 each per year? That is kind of like what they're looking for.
The funny thing is that like I always thought startups have to be like innovative. They have to be disruptive. Like they have to use like cutting edge technology. But like in the grand scheme of things, they only like the only important thing is that whether you have like a defensible business that like that makes like $100 million in any revenue.
Or has the potential.
Yeah.
Most, like, I mean, to be fair, like, this is what the investors say what they want, but 99.9% of companies never get there.
Yeah.
And sometimes they still become good companies even if they do less revenue. But if just to get the funding, you need to show that it's theoretically possible to get to this stage, because they're making bets. They're betting on 10 companies, and one of them needs to get to the 100 million. The others might also be good companies, but if you want to get money from the investors, you need to show like, oh, I can actually get to 100 million.
Like that is the vision, basically.
Yeah.
Like as you said, like most companies don't end up like having a like 100 million ARR. Otherwise, like we would have like much more unicorns. But you need to promote, like it's almost like.
If you talk to investors, you need to kind of like tell them, oh yes, I can get there.
Yeah, basically it's like it's almost like saying that, oh, your time is worthwhile because there is a potential of me becoming a unicorn, which like returns your fund. Like basically showing that incentives are aligned.
And I think this is where San Francisco is like much more aggressive. The investors there are cutthroat than in other countries. Because I think like a lot of European investors, they're like, oh, sounds like a good idea, this could be good, and then they might give you money. In San Francisco, they're like, no, they're super hardcore in this.
We got super deep into technical stuff, so.
Yeah. Sorry, this was like very technical. Yeah.
No, we actually appreciate you talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm sure our audience love this. But can we learn a bit from your idea, if possible? Your current startup idea, and maybe build upon that.
I can present it. So this is like the thing again, like because we're in this early process, like it's not that easy to find like this the final idea that you're working on, and then most startups come up with some hypothesis and then work it out along the way by talking to people.
I think it would be also like interesting to like tell about the program we went through, because it was like a bit like unique experience. Like I don't think I ever like heard or like that. So our investor called Entrepreneur First. Actually, they recently changed their name to Entrepreneurs First. So they're a startup accelerator, but like their investment thesis is a bit different. So rather than like investing in teams that have already been established and they have like an idea or like a product they've been working on, they just invest based on people's profiles. They say, okay, these people have like good technical abilities. They have demonstrated good commercial ability in the past. So let's just like put them in a room. These like 30 people we scouted across the Europe, and then have them figure out, like have them team up. And then you went through like a 10-week program, and then your goal is to basically at the end of the 10th week have like show that you're like resilient, show that you have like good funder capabilities, and at the end of the 10th week you pitch an idea. But like most of the times, like the idea you pitch is not the idea you, even if you get funded, is not the idea you like progress and like build on top of it. So most of the teams then like pivot afterwards, afterwards the 10th week. So we actually
because like basically the concept is like, oh, you meet somebody new and you come up with some idea, and what they're looking for is just like, can you come up with it?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you work? Do you understand how this game works? So we started out with something completely different, like some idea in the beginning, but then after we got funded, we decided to change it, because we went to San Francisco and we realized like, oh, we need to get something, like we didn't know all this stuff that we're talking about right now. So we were like, oh, these people here, they want to see like a really big vision and like a very like sophisticated business case. So what we are working on right now is that this is our thesis, that there's like these big testing companies. So every product, if it wants to go to market, needs to get certified. So if Apple is producing an iPhone and they want to sell it in like different countries around the world, they need to send it to like a lab, to a testing institution, and get a certificate that it's safe and that it complies with the national regulation, etc. And what we found is that like many of these companies, they're still not like super digitized, and they employ a lot of people, and there's like a lot of opportunity to make things more efficient. And especially what we found is that like often when companies want to get their product certified, they send a bunch of documents with 100 pages about everything about their document, all the different parts, they sent us like PDF to a testing lab, to this big testing company, and asked them like, okay, what would you charge me for getting this to market, for this certificate? And they sent this to a bunch of different companies. And then these testing labs, they need to understand, oh, this is the product, this is how all these different parts of this iPhone work. Okay, what is the regulation now in all these different countries? And then they manually read through all the laws in the different countries and the standards and try to understand. Then they manually write down everything for every part, decide what tests to make, and then send a quote. And they do, and then sometimes this company says like, oh, thank you for the quote, we decided to go with somebody else. So they did a lot of work for free basically. And so now with AI what's possible is that you use AI to automatically read all the documentation from the manufacturing company. You read all the documentation about the standards and the regulation, and automatically say what is the standard that applies to which part of the product and what is the required test, and you automate this entire part. And thereby, so the ROI that we provide to these companies is that you are faster, you can win customers faster, and much cheaper because you don't need like 100 people that manually do the quoting anymore. So this is what we're working on right now. We have some pilots going on, but yes, as it is with startups, we don't know anything. The only people that know something are the customers. That's why the only thing you need to do is like talk to them, ask them what is their problem, and then they tell you like, oh yes, this quoting takes so much time. And then Yusuf can come up with some technical solution.
Yeah, so basically like we had no idea like this like whole industry, which is like a $300 billion industry, had existed like couple like weeks ago, and now like by talking to people in this industry and like by listening to what they actually care about, and then you say, okay, like this is like a pain point, they're like providing free service free of charge to their customers, then we can maybe automate it. And now like this is because like early stages, like we're still understanding. Now as you mentioned, we are thinking about like a vision to like see whether this can actually be something that can like become big.
Yeah. So basically we at this stage we see like, oh, this work can work. This works, there's a clear demand in the market. But then like this, we need to kind of justify how can this scale to 100 million in revenue?
Yeah.
How is this $1 billion opportunity?
Yeah, because like what you'll find out when you talk to people, you hear like a lot of like shitty problems like that are not actually like big problems. They're like, oh, like I need to enter this data manually into my logbook, but this is like only one person's like 10% of their job definition, and like even if you were to automate it, it's only saving like a little. So you need to actually understand like, oh, this is like a recurring problem with respect in different companies, and there's like a pattern, and then you save a lot of like time or make something much faster or basically like correct a lot of errors.
Yeah, I think that's like what you touched on is very important. Is that like when you do all these calls and you have like 30-40 calls a week, like people tell you a lot about their problems. Sometimes they tell you about their personal problems, but then it's often not a business opportunity. It's just a problem. Yeah, maybe you could probably build a solution to many of the problems that people tell you about, but is this a venture case? Maybe not. And this is the difficult part then about building like this kind of B2B startup.
Yeah, we haven't still cracked this.
We haven't still cracked it, so yeah. We might not be the best people to talk to it to, but we can tell you just like from our experiences from the process and all the hurdles on the way.
So what I understand from here is that we need to be humble and listen to the customers and need to pivot or scrap the idea if possible, if needed.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's always the balance with like scrapping an idea or sticking with a topic, because sometimes you just need to talk maybe to the wrong person, and maybe some other person is the right person to talk to. So it's a difficult balance to strike.
Yeah, don't fall in love with your idea.
Yeah. Because that's easy, because once it's so hard to come up with a good idea, and then you also pitch it to other people constantly, and then you kind of start like really liking it, but then you kind of like realize, oh, maybe nobody really wants to pay for this, so you kind of need to be realistic with yourself, like, okay, does this make sense, or am I just like in a kind of Stockholm syndrome with my own idea?
You need to be like in love with the idea when you're pitching, but once the pitching ends, you need to be like, okay, what does actually like means?
Exactly.
Okay. And if possible, we want to learn about your MVP building, your proof of concept building, and necessary technology.
From the that's
Yeah,
actually
from your experiences and technology from you for your current idea.
I think yesterday night, it was terrible. At 2 a.m. we showed our demo to a company because this guy was in Canada. And Yusuf built like a very nice MVP very quickly for this. Maybe you can talk about this.
Yeah, so like I think like the main goal, like if you read like any startup book, like or like the lean startup, for example, is like super like a cult one, cult classic one. Everyone must read. I think like the goal is to not waste any time on building. Like you should never like index on like building a cool like a that works, like even
nice color schemes,
exactly, nice color schemes, like it must look shitty, or like it must not like take a lot of time, because the time you spend building, you're basically the time you're wasting not talking to customers that actually have the insights that make you build that valuable business. And like your MVP can be like basically, if you're building like a documentation or like a report generation tool, you can be like work and like build like a nice like a rack pipeline with good with good machine learning optimizations or whatever. But all of these actually don't matter. Like if you're building a report generation tool, your MVP can be like a good front end. And some people in like a low income countries like that does the report writing by themselves.
I wouldn't even go that far. I think you should avoid building anything as much as possible. Like first of all, try to not build anything, only have conversations, and then once somebody sees something, just try to be a pirate and like find tricks. Like what we like our friends were like now we were in the same program, but they became successful much faster than us. So they raised like a couple of million, or like the most hyped up startup in Silicon Valley right now. What they did in the beginning, they showed people like, oh, this is our product, and they just showed them a video of a competitor. So they just like do not build anything. They just cut the logo out, like, because they're just like just trying to find data. You're not even like selling anything. You're like just trying to learn. And if you then like start like building something, and then more often than not, even when we're like, oh, we built like every time we built an MVP, we thought like, okay, yeah, now we try to avoid it as long as possible. Now we really need to build something. And then afterwards we were like, oh. We could have not done this.
Yeah, we could have done
like,
so much easier.
The best way is just to like create something like an image or something, a PowerPoint that looks like a product. Like try to like not build anything, because most of the time you don't need it. But right now also it's very easy to build like stuff. So yeah, but I would invest as little time as possible on like building, because it will always change.
Great insights. And let's take some questions from our audience, shall we? Okay. Let's send our mic.
So then, as you mentioned, put your time less on MVP. So how do you gain trust from your customers? In that case, like how do you make your customer feel safe that you will be able to achieve this project?
Well, then you're already like pretty far, because then you already need to know that the customer actually wants this, right? Because the first thing is like that even takes the most time is does the customer actually want this, right? So it's like 90% of the time you're just asking questions on like, oh, what is your workflow? What is like the biggest challenge? Like, where do you spend a lot of time? And then you need to understand how many people in this organization are doing this. And then at some point,
how much willing to pay?
How much are they willing to pay? So this is like a long journey, and most people start building like way too early, like an MVP. I mean, once you get like really like after many weeks and many like hundreds of conversations to the point where you need to gain the trust of the customer, yeah, then you can like think about like building an MVP. But even then, if you pitch it to them on Zoom or something, a PowerPoint slide looks also like a product, right? You can like just fake it, like you just say, yeah, this is our product, it does this and this, or somebody else could just manually do something in the background, or I mean with AI now you can also build something fairly quickly. But I would just like avoid building anything because chances are that 99% of the time it's not gonna be that useful.
Just to follow up, like you said, we shouldn't start building before we have at least first customer.
Yeah.
And once you convince the first customer, is it when you actually start building the product, or is still not enough? You need some investments. What will be the step after you convince someone?
I think like if you have the first customer, I think you will need to first understand is this customer the only customer in the world who wants this specific solution? Because I think we had this a few times. We could have sold like a bunch of products to like one person, but you need to understand, is it like a recurring theme?
But basically, like organizations are like super different from each other, even the ones that are like direct competitors to each other. So one's problem may not actually translate to another. So I think like if you actually like basically, as I mentioned, like if you find out this is a pattern that like repeats itself, like if it's like recurring and like people want it, then just go ahead and build it. Like build the most like scrappy way and demonstrate it. But yeah.
I think what we have heard like a number of like successful founders in the Valley always mention of like investors is like, oh, you should have talked to like 100 people, and then when you talk with these 100 people, then you saw like a pattern of there's like a multiple organizations who want these kind of solutions that they're really like willing to pay, then you start building. And then there's also like another concept. I mean, sorry, we're giving you so much like this bunch of like this was all I'm learning over like many months, but in the conversations like always really testing. Do these people actually want this? Because and are they the decision maker? Are they really like is there a budget for this? Because so many people in these conversations they tell you like, oh yeah, this is a problem, and especially if you come there like as a young guy and they're like, oh, this guy wants to do something and he has this idea. Of course, I tell him like, oh, yeah, this is a good idea.
Build it, yeah, exactly. Because for the organization or for the person you're speaking, it costs nothing for them to say, oh, I would buy this. But like wood is not like there is no wooden money, right? Because like if you say, okay, would you buy this product if I were to build it? They would say yes, but and then you go ahead and build like spends like precious resources, and then basically then you demonstrate and then say, oh, then I need to talk to my CTO, I need to talk to my CEO, I need to like, oh, this is end of the year, I don't have money to like spend. So basically, just maybe like actually a good book to read on this is called like the Mom Test, and it's like basically a whole like 100 pages of like how to make your customer commit other than like paying you. So you can like you can say, okay, like also the way to like properly like handle customer interviews, like because you need to frame your questions in a way that you don't like make them bias into giving you like soft answers. Like it's like talking to your mother. If you say, okay, mom, I have this like brilliant idea, what do you think about this? Is this a good idea? They would say yes, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And most of the time, these strangers that you reach out to, they are also like not super like honest people. They're like, because of the social cues, they don't want to hurt your feelings, or they don't want to make you feel bad. They would say, oh, this is actually like a good idea, or like this is a big, you ask, oh, is this a problem for you? They say, yes, this is a problem for me. In reality, no.
Exactly, they don't know, often these people that you talk to, they don't know what a good business is, right? They just say like, oh yeah, this is a problem, but then you're like, oh, but like the company, like we've had this many times, they say like, oh yeah, this is such a big problem, oh, I would love for somebody to solve it, and it's like, oh, but what happens if nobody solves it? Like, oh, nothing, like it doesn't really matter. Like there's no time saving, there's no cost. So from the company perspective, why would they invest money if there's no like if you don't increase revenue or cut costs or this is actually the two only things that matter. Yeah.
So if you actually solve their problem, then convince the customer, would you expect like some repayment or something? But so when do you actually start building it?
I think that definitely like varies from like industry to industry. For example, like if you're like building something for aerospace companies, like I don't think like I don't think the sales cycles. I don't expect them to pay you like upfront because like it's like such a highly secure like these sites like or if you're doing like a consumer product, you can relatively charge easy because $20 for or like $10 for like a consumer is not that much when compared to like a 10,000 or 50,000 or like 100,000 commitment from a business. So I think it just depends.
Also, I think if you're solving a real problem, they're also like willing to pay. So our friends who are like quite successful, they got like $150,000 contract like this, like within a few days, because they were like, oh yeah, we need this. So, and if they don't, if the companies are not that willing to pay, then you should reconsider, is this actually such a big deal?
Actually, like a great example for this was like we had like a company that wanted to that really liked our previous idea in UK, and basically like we like the first conversation we had them, we were like they were super hyped of let's do this, and the person we were talking to was also like a higher up, he had like a big stakeholder. Think about it, and then they were like really into it, but then we had like weekly meetings, we built the products. Luckily for us, like we didn't just build it for them, we were also getting good traction from other customers as well. But this went on for like 2 months, 3 months, and I think the like mistake on our part was that we asked for like $10,000, where we should be charging like much more than that. But we thought, okay, if we ask for like a low amount of like, if we put like a price tag that is like relatively low for this like big company, they would just like move faster with the sales cycle. But they did not, and I think like after a month that this is not going through, I think we should have just like dropped the customer, because you like as a startup you don't have resources to like spend a lot of time on these like long sales cycles basically.
Time, because as a startup you don't have time, because otherwise if you don't, you just run out of money and you're dead.
Yeah.
So it's a race against the time. So don't waste time like talking with maybes, because it's also nice. Like I always like kind of like it's always hard to resist that trap, because if somebody tells you, oh this is nice, this is a cool product, like yeah, you want to believe it also, right? Because it's like it's a hard journey. You just want it to work. But you actually need to be like tough on that, because otherwise, what are you doing?
Good thing. Cool.
Are there any questions? Okay.
So you mentioned in the beginning that you outreach people on LinkedIn and then schedule your interviews. So I want to ask that when you schedule the interviews, how do you structure your interviews so you steer them to the kind of problem that you're looking for? Because a person, for example, would have tons of problems in their life. So you would want to know like the ones that are relevant to you. So how do you structure your interview? What kind of questions you ask?
I think that's an excellent question. I think what we learned is that you kind of need to prepare this, because in the first few interviews that I did, I just went in and just asked questions, and then it always went like off-road basically. They talk about whatever, and they talk about how difficult the meetings are and how they don't like their colleague, and like a bunch of like irrelevant stuff. So what you need to do is kind of like you need to have like a prepared list of goals. What is the goal from this meeting? What is the information that you need to extract? But also you don't want to limit yourself, because often you have a hypothesis in your head what their problem is or should be to work with your product, but actually you realize, oh, maybe something else is like the bigger unlock. So so what we do, we usually would like we structure them in a way that we first intro, then we ask them what we learned. What's very very important is that they explain their workflow to us in like a lot of detail. Like what is it exactly that you do? Who are you in the company? Is this a decision maker? Is this like somebody who would be a user? Like try kind of like, because otherwise you deal with a bunch of problems later. But you need to understand who's this person, what exactly are they doing, and then you ask them, okay, understanding this workflow, what are your biggest challenges there, and for manual tasks, so that they don't talk about like their management stuff or like company culture, like stuff that has nothing to do with your product. So this is then how you structure it, and then I would narrow it down after you have this like basic information, either on the challenge that they talked about, or the specific questions that you want to get an answer to, or you want to like better understand, and kind of like try to always like go back to this like question catalog that you had before. And then often like what I found is also it's often good if you're two people. It's often easier than alone, because then I forget that question, or like it's also hard if you have so many calls a day to actually stay active and listen to all of them. Then Yusuf jumps in and like asks like a good question, and then I can go back again, and this is how I would do. This is how we are doing it.
So basically you create like a persona of person before you start actually asking questions, right?
Yeah, I think that's like a mistake that we have made, that we talk to people without really understanding what they're doing, who they are,
And what are their interests?
and what are their interests,
Yeah.
right? And then you and then maybe like this person, you know, that you didn't understand what they're actually doing, and they tell you about, oh, this would be super cool, like we need this in the company, this solves a big problem, and then you build a product for them, and then they tell you like, oh, you're like, you know, like some employee who has no decision making power, who is actually, it's just for him personally a problem, but not for the company. And then you waste time, which you don't have.
Yeah, I think again, like I think you should definitely read the book like a Montes. Like I cannot emphasize this enough. Like it's a great read. Like
and the thing is, like all these things that we say to us are things that people have told us. We've read the books, we've made the mistakes. It's like you really need to internalize these like things. Like okay, what is a real pain point? What are they willing to pay for? Who are these people that we are talking to? And then just grind through it. Yeah. And I think you will also probably, if you're just starting out at the beginning, you will make all these mistakes again. Like everyone I've talked to, everyone knows it, but then once you're doing it, you still make the mistakes. But it's just like trying to avoid them.
yeah, it's better the earlier you know, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions from the audience? Sanırım mikrofon kapalı ama açabilir misin? Ona basılı tutarsanız.
Okay. So let's assume there is only one company who makes cell phones and it's selling great. They already showed that there is customer validation. The value is great for the people, and I'm going to be the second cover, and I don't offer anything extra. Is it okay for investors or people in the ecosystem to invest in me? Because I don't offer anything new on them.
Yeah, I think that's like it depends on the market and the product category. But I think that's something like entire big businesses have been built up on just being like the second one, and often the second one outcompetes the first one. I think it's okay. You just need to know like how big is the advantage of the first mover, like how far are they ahead, how much of the customer group have they already captured, and can you realistically compete with them? But yeah, again, or to bring this example of our friends, they are basically super successful now. They're kind of doing what another company is also doing, but the market is massive, and they have like a different approach to it. And they're doing super well. It's actually sometimes even better if somebody else has done something similar, because your market is already like validated. It's de-risked. But you also don't have a first move advantage.
Yeah. Also, for example, like if you're like building like a new thing, like a new product, for the first mover, like the first one that comes up with the idea, it's like relatively harder for them to sell into a company, because they need to prove, oh, this product works and this is the ROI. This saves you this much time. This saves you this much like labor. But for the second comer, the market will be already educated. Like the people in the industry have already heard about the first product, and now like looking for like for people to partner up to get that kind of product into their system. So I think like it doesn't matter like if you can basically get traction and like and basically like earn money. It's not necessarily not super important.
Usually, if it's a great business, there will be more than one.
Yeah,
Like there's not just one car company, not just one mobile phone company. Just because of these reasons, it's just sometimes with startups, it's more difficult.
And you can also differentiate with respect to like geography. If there's like a company that is doing this in the US, like there will be multiple companies that are successful within the US, but there will be also companies in Europe, in Turkey, in Asia. Like I think like also like the startup ecosystem in Turkey, like there are like a lot of companies that replicated what's worked in US and brought it to Turkey and that are doing like super well. For example,
It might sometimes even be like a very smart approach to it, because you have like de-risk, for example, there's a crypto wallet in the US, the same in Europe or Turkey, right? Or like for almost every company there's like some equivalent, and then maybe the bigger one buys you. I mean it's a pretty common model, but it's also like sometimes a bit of a hard problem, because if somebody else has already done it, then everyone sees this walking.
Yeah, just market needs to be big enough, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's just some research.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I actually have one, and we didn't talk much about it, but you have told us the story of about how you met, but a startup's team is the core, essential part of the startup. And can you educate us more about your team and team dynamics in general?
Yeah, I think like so. Like I think this is how we can do it. Like for us, like it's like a two-person operation, two people operation. So like I think the team dynamic is like it's like always 50-50 because we're like equal partners. It's not like I'm coding, and Konsti like does the selling. I think like in the earlier days, both founders have to be like equally involved in every part of the business. Like we both do customer calls, we both do like discovery, we both do like Konsti sometimes comes up with like the ways that we can build the MVP, which is like sometimes a unique insight for me.
I'm basically technical now. It's so easy.
Yeah, so I think that the team dynamic, I think everything has to be equal, and you need to call out on the others mistakes as well. Like sometimes like we do some mistakes in calls. Like sometimes some of us like ask not good questions to the customer, and then that tracks out, and then at the end of the call calls me, oh, that was a stupid question. I think you need to be like completely honest with the other founder, and you need to have like complete trust. But I think the way you find your co-founder is also like it should be a person that is like completely different than you with respect to the value they add to the business. Like I don't think I would be teaming up with a person who had on paper it looks good. Like probably like it will be like fun for me to work with a person who has like similar background, like did similar research, did similar like project, did similar degrees. I probably would get along with them like good. I would talk about these like all of the questions I would have. But I think I would much rather be with Konsti because he provides a lot of value that and provides a lot of like information that I have not like been exposed to in my previous like experiences.
I think it also a bit depends on it. Like if you have like an amazing idea, which is unlikely in the beginning, right? But some people have like an amazing idea and a network already, and you know how to get customers, and they have it all figured out. And maybe like the co-founder is like they can give them a bit less equity, or can do some other arrangement. But if it's like if you have nothing, if you just need to come up with something out of thin air, then you need to be both like need to trust each other, need to like fully believe in each other, need to just share their work, because otherwise it's like tough, right?
Yeah, it's
also,
not that fun. Yeah,
we're basically married now. Right? I have like Yusuf's girlfriend is always complaining that that she's not spending any time with him because Yusuf is always like traveling the world with me. We go like to the same hotels. We travel together. We go eat together. I don't see anyone more than him. Actually, I don't see anyone else. It's even more intense than a marriage. Like with no like separation. We live together. We work together. Everything. There's nothing.
Yeah, I think like these boundaries also like disappear. Like we are. I think like we are like super good friends, but we are also like business partners. Like, and now like I think it's like there is no separation because like we live together, we do everything together. I think like I first like thought, oh, like I can like so in this like program Entrepreneur First, like there are like 28 other people, right? So you can choose. And I think we both like have been through like different teams. We both like been teamed up with other people as well. And at first I was like, I don't think like what people told us that like the co-founder relationship does not matter. Like you can be business partners and not friends. But like I think day by day I see like we understand like this is completely untrue because
it only works I think if you have like if everything is going well, if you have like from day one like an amazing business case, but the moment it gets difficult, you better be good friends.
Yeah, because like this is definitely like, the hardest thing I did, and like we have like extremely stressful like time periods as well. Like I think like if it's like a friction between the founders, or if you're not like super good friends, if you cannot like be completely honest and open about like how you feel and how you think, then there's like a big problems because then this will like escalate. And also you would love to probably give this like statistic like most of the teams, most of the startups fail because there's a problem with the founder dynamic.
Yeah, so most people think like, oh no, there's a competitor, it's gonna kill a company. But that's like usually not the reason the company fails. It's like most of the time it's just like, oh, co-founders. There's something like, oh, one co-founder thinks like the other one doesn't respect him enough, or he constantly interrupts him during the calls. And if you don't have like a relationship where you can just say, oh, you should just tell me like, oh, can you please shut up, or like, don't do this anymore, like this is annoying, or yeah, just do this differently, then it gets difficult.
Yeah.
Honesty is the key.
Yeah.
Okay, so our entrepreneurs are probably interested about this metric. What about the freelancers? What about the employees? I know you are two right now, and you have your investment in a fund, and you have you spent it yet? I'm not sure.
I mean, we've spent some of it, but we still have money from our investment. But like employees, I mean, we haven't really employed people because we're still like in this like phase where we try to identify where's the $1 billion idea, where's the huge opportunity.
So what if I said that I was interested and you said, okay, you are a good one. Maybe we could employ you and take you in our team. Are you going to feed me via shares or money? So that's what I'm wondering about. So you want to increase your LinkedIn communications by 200 and you want me in the team?
Yeah. So
what will be the dynamics?
So usually how this works is like, what we saw also with our friends and other companies where it worked, like hiring is also pretty hard because the person that you bring on board, it changes the dynamic of the company, it changes the culture, it changes the outlook, because right now it's two people, we know each other, there's somebody else that changes it. So what I've seen from all these startups, they spend an insane amount of time for recruiting. They talk to 80, 90, 100 people before they bring somebody on board. And then, I mean, you want them to be like loyal to the company, to like be invested in the company and stay for a very long time and feel like an owner, because nobody's ever going to work harder on this than us, because for us it's our life, we have our equity in it. But then for the employee, if he just has like a salary, he might be like not interested. So then you give them some equity, so they're invested in it. And but this equity is also vested over 4 years usually. That means they get every year a little bit of that equity, so that they stay. But you can also like fire them if it's not a match.
So basically, you offer them like equity, like let's say 2%. They get like 0.5% every year over the course of 4 years, and so that they just don't immediately get all of the equity and then don't do any of the work. And yeah, and actually like some of our friends are hiring right now, and they're also like offering like insane like referral bonuses to find the right person.
Yeah.
They're like offering like $50,000 for the person who refers them the right engineer, who introduces them to the right engineer to their team.
Like a friend of mine in San Francisco told me like, oh, I'll give you $50,000 if you introduce a good engineer to me and I hire him, because it's so hard to find, it's so important for them. But it's also extreme. That's like
that's the only one.
Well, I've seen like 2-3 companies now that do it.
50.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
But like usually they do like 3 to 5 to 10K
Yeah.
referrals. So, but that's just like it's to understand how obsessed they are with finding the right people.
So referral is a good way to earn money.
Exactly, but it's also not that hard.
Yeah,
but then you need to know such a good engineer and convince them to go to this company. Not that easy.
Would you refer Yusuf?
I'm always scared, like people have been kind of like, oh, I'll give you a lot of money if you refer Yusuf. Like, no. This is like the last resort. if we really can make it.
Have you acquired your first customer?
We had one, but now we don't.
Yeah.
So
yes, so I think like with the previous idea, like as we mentioned, like we were able to like get some traction in the beginning, and then we had like a customer, and we had like another one in the pipeline, and things were going okay. But now, like since we are like a bit earlier, like we have this idea, we are like right now doing some pilot projects with the companies. The one in the US, for example, because we were up like late yesterday. Yeah, right now we don't have a customer, but.
Which country were the customer from?
Canada.
Yeah.
So an Austrian guy, a Turkish guy, who are right now in Turkey,
Yeah.
and from Silicon Valley, taking a customer in Canada.
Yeah, but
It's quite a worldwide.
yeah, exactly. But it's always like that because like with the internet, there's no really boundaries. I mean, the gold standard is what everyone tries is always like U.S. customers. Like every investor wants to see U.S. customers.
Yeah.
But sometimes like maybe your customer is in Saudi Arabia, maybe they are like in Japan.
Actually, like also with VCs, for example, like this is not something I experienced, like, but I heard they are like kind of more interested in you having US customers and having US traction because it is much more easier to scale your business in US. That's why we are like right now talking to like it's not US but in Canada, like talking to a company in
Which
Canada.
might become the US.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking to a company in Canada, talking to companies in US, and like even though there's like a big time zone difference, but right now we don't have.
But also still this is like also specifically to our like investor, they also want us to be US based. I think there have been lots of great companies built and there's going to be great companies built that have like investors in Europe. I mean, there is this counter hypothesis, and also Peter Thiel said it like break away from competition, right? So if everyone is focusing on the US market right now, all the smart hustlers, hardcore people are focusing on the US market, then maybe like, you know, in Europe there's like opportunity, you know, there's like geo arbitrage, there's like something there. So this is like the things that you have to think about. Like maybe like, okay, if you want to have the global category leader, you need to be in the US. If you want to build a big business that works well, maybe Europe is good, maybe Turkey is good, maybe Saudi Arabia is good. I mean, there have been big companies built everywhere. It's just like in general, the like normal recommendation is like US because it's the largest. It's just one market. You do it in California, you do it in 49 other states, and they all have like a lot of money, and it's just like the home of capitalism.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was
And-
one more question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you about your financial history of your company. So how much did you raise from your package in the beginning, and did you make any revenue before you already get an investment? When you get an investment, how did you calculate the value of the company? So what percentage of the company you give, or what the investment basically help you?
So how it usually works, like with this incubator that we do, they give you $250,000 to go to San Francisco and figure it out. So this is what we got. We haven't raised since then. And then what you would do, what like the others, what right now in the market, what the others companies in our batch did, they raised now like a seed round. Usually is like 2 to 3 million on a 15 to 20 million valuation for a seed round. So this is usually how it goes. And then so the valuations in the US are quite high. I think in Europe you might not raise it at 20 million valuation unless you have like some good customers already, or like a very clear path from once it becomes a big company.
You want to explain the equity bit as well? It's also like for the investment we received is like it's like there's a 125K is for the 8% equity of our company, and then 125 is something called SAFE, which then converts into equity after you raise the next round. So after on the next round's like valuation.
And did you have a revenue before this investment?
No.
No, you don't need like for this like pre-seed like or like to get a couple of 100K, they just give you just so that you can figure it out. It's like research money. But then once you do a seed round, you don't necessarily need revenue for the seed round, but you need something.
We have friends that raise that have not raised, but that is going to raise a super well seed round without having any revenues as well.
Or also without any clear path to revenue.
Yeah, exactly. Like these guys, for example, like they're building a deep tech startup that is like super like technical. They're going to disrupt the whole like semiconductor and like chip space. This is their like vision, and of course like this is like such a technically hard, complicated product to build. So they don't have any revenues or anything.
An MVP there just doesn't count, right?
Yeah, it is not something you can like build with AI on the software.
And how long was it before you get your first investment? So how
No, this is just like part of the program. Like if you were
already in the beginning?
No, actually, like it was like this. So basically, after the 10 weeks of the program, then you do the pitch. You say or you pitch the idea that you've been working. But for us, like for example, me and Konsti, we teamed up at week 8, like the last day of week 8. So we had like 2 weeks to work on the idea we were working, and then pitch that idea, and then it was like credible enough and it was like fast enough progress for them to convince that we can be a good team in the long run.
So basically, yeah, they gave us like $250,000 after 2 weeks. Fine. Yeah, but like it doesn't mean anything at the end.
Yeah,
of the day.
exactly.
Like,
Like
at the end of the day, like all this, like you also like once you do this, they invite you to conferences and maybe you get some prize and stuff. And like it all not so important. Like the only thing that's really important is like
business.
do you understand the customer? Do they actually have a need? Can you solve it?
Yep.
It's like the only thing that you should care about.
Because the money you raise is actually not your money; it's the company's money, and you just like risked the company just a little bit and not even that much.
Yeah.
So the end goal should be not be like, oh, how much money I'm going to raise the next round or how much equity I'm going up. It must be like, oh, how I'm going to build like a
I think that's sometimes like in startups, it's like, oh, you can raise this, that, and this, that, and this, that, but that doesn't matter that much. It just matters like, oh, is there a business or not?
Yeah, it's just noise.
Yeah, but it gets very easy to get distracted because like there's lots of posts on LinkedIn and everything's cool and like startup stuff. But at the end of the day, the fundamentals is just like business, brutal business. No.
Okay, any other questions? Maybe I can ask a question. And we have a lot of BIGG entrepreneurs here who want to be TÜBİTAK entrepreneurs and get about 900 Turkish liras.
Mm-hmm.
But a very core question, very hard issue here is that their ideas are sometimes not necessarily able to pass the project and get funding. So they need to pivot or they need to scrap. Mm-hmm. And you have had your own pivot and scrap experience, yes. And it's actually a quite hard experience.
It's not fun. It's the worst thing ever, actually.
I don't know if you can see it in my eyes. It's a painful experience.
Yeah.
Can you explain the painful process you have gone through?
I think for us, like, it was like even more stressful because like we went through like this like program and we were in San Francisco in the offices, like we had like good friends from the cohort, we have some money and people expect us to do well, right? Mm-hmm. And then when once like the other ones like took off, once our friends like they are doing super well, like we're super happy for them, but like we kind of also like want those things for yourself as well. You also want to do well, but then it gets like insane like mind games because your friends are doing well, you're thinking about pivoting, you don't know whether you need to like commit to it or completely get rid of your idea or do something different. I think it's just like such a difficult decision to do. It was I think the most stressful, maybe one of the most stressful times in my life.
Because there's just so much FOMO, you know, like if you pivot, I don't know if any of you are in these programs are thinking about going into a different direction because maybe this one business is not fundable. It's like a hard experience, right? You need to kind of like find again, okay, what's my starting point? Like, how do I not get distracted by every newspaper article that I read about what technology is taking off, while at the same time like riding a wave that makes a lot of sense. And so I think that the only way to do it and also to stay like somewhat mentally sane is just to like be focused on one thing, try to think about it clearly, what makes sense, what are our profiles. What industries are we interested in? Like come up with some hypothesis, talk to people, and build conviction. Because otherwise, you're just jumping around and like.
I think actually like what we've done with the previous idea was I think like you should probably avoid like completely like scrapping your idea, like completely doing something different. I think you should like they always say, oh, you should pivot within the same space you're building. Iterate, like do something if you're like in sales. If you're doing like sales training, you need to do something within sales, like where you have already established some context, some people within the space. But what we did was we completely got like out of the space we were previously building on, because we thought it was like super crowded, it was like super high competition, and we were also a bit late to the market, and there was like not like a big moat in the long run. So we then also, to be like frank, me and Konsti, like we teamed up at week 8, right? So we had like 2-3 weeks to basically properly like come up with the idea that is like like that is credible, that has like a big vision. So we kind of after like a month or two, we just figured out, oh, we haven't actually properly ideated together. Like we haven't like given it a thought in the beginning. And
they haven't done all these important interviews that we talked about before.
Yeah. So then we thought, okay, maybe like if we just like take a step back and like see what we want in the long run and what kind of like spaces we're more interested. That kind of made sense for us at the beginning. Right, still makes sense to basically completely disregard the idea. But the common saying is that you should always stay within the space you have picked.
If you do insurance, do something different in insurance, for example. That depends on your idea.
Yeah.
As an aspect, as a secret sauce.
Exactly.
Okay, if there aren't any questions, maybe we can finish the talking process and you can talk with our entrepreneurs one-on-one. Are there any questions from the audience?
As far as I see, you are trying to...
Arkada mikrofonu alın isterseniz.
As far as I see, there is an ongoing, let's say, the cost problem in the certification process of the new products in many industries.
Yes.
Actually. So you are reducing the cost. So what would be your income generating model? Now, because it's will you be charging directly as the testing companies or let's say saving sharing model, something like that? We keep about.
So what we've been thinking about was that we have no clear pricing yet. It was just like charging a fee to the testing company, trying to understand what does it cost them now, how many hours do people work right now. This is one aspect, but also if they can go faster to market, if they can win more customers, you can also charge more there. We don't have the exact pricing.
Yeah, actually, there's an ongoing trend about basically you charge per you charge per the outcome. So if they're this testing company, they need to do quoting for their customers, right? So we can one hypothesis we have is that we charge per the quoting, per the quoting that we do for them. So we don't have a monthly a software fee. We charge them. We charge per the code they uploaded to the system. This is an ongoing trend. Or one other thing can be that we charge per we charge per customer's commitment to the contract, commitment to the code. So we do the coding for them, and if the customer commits to doing the contract with the testing facility, then you can have a revenue share of 5% of 10% of whatever they're charging to their customer. You can have it because you did the coding for them.
Yeah. Right now there's a lot of companies that do, for example, sales outreach with AI, and they charge per meeting booked. So it's outcome based, or if they do claims for insurances, they charge per claim. And there's a lot of these this is AI trend right now that they charge a service provider, because it's basically work.
Yeah, because in hindsight, actually, it doesn't matter whether your product has AI in it or no AI in it, because customer does not care. They just want that process to be handled efficiently, and they don't want to waste any resources on it. So if, as I mentioned, if you can also be a provider for them that gets these documents and send them to let's say India, and have people look them over and prepare the test list and then send you back, and then you give this to your customer. That can also work. And you can say that, oh, AI made this. In reality, it's just it's a bunch of human labor. So, in hindsight, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
I have another question. Anyway, this testing and this process is rather complex, and it changes from country to country.
Yes.
So, did you collect all these types of tests, procedures, etc.? Because it's keep changing all the time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that is what you are trying to do is rather complex.
Yeah.
Or at least for me, just having some understanding about it.
Yeah.
But it is still developing every time. And each year, some testing procedures, some testing, let's say, some details are changing. So it looks really kind of
complicated. Yeah, exactly. Actually, that is why we kind of came across this industry, came across this like a problem we are interested in, because this was like repeatedly mentioned to us, like, oh, regulation is changing. We need to read the whole regulation, like, which is like a 300, 400, sometimes like 1,000 page document, and need to understand it and then read it through the technical specification of the document. But right now we can just like build a product around it. Like you don't need a human to read it. You can have index the whole document as a I don't want to get technical, but this now technically is possible. And
that's the AI unlock. Actually, what we're looking at is really like of AI. You can do these things, and because they're changing all the time, that's why it's interesting to build something in that space right now.
Yeah, and like always, actually, like when you're coming up with an idea or like a problem or like a space, I think like one good question is to ask, as you mentioned, why now? Like what has changed in the past 2 years that is now this has become a good idea, and it was not a good idea in the past.
Yeah.
And for this,
I think especially for students, it's like students usually pitch like a new kind of social media, right? Or some learning app, and then like that's like a typical student idea. Then you need to think about like, oh, but like why? What has changed now? Why? Or a marketplace? Students also love to pitch marketplaces, like, oh, but then you should think like, oh, but why would this marketplace exist now and not before? There's so many people in the world. You're probably not the only person that has thought about it.
Yeah. Your idea has been definitely
any idea is what you learn somebody else has thought about.
Okay. Is there any questions from the audience? If not, let's take a break. Let's finish the talking process, and you can talk with our entrepreneurs one-on-one while enjoying some coffee, tea, and cookies.